All right, looks like we are recording. All right, so let me just get to the link here. For those just joining, this is the monthly Helium community call. We have the agenda in the side chat. I'll post it one more time for those just joining. Feel free to follow along there. I think we're good to go. Okay, so yeah, welcome everyone. Good morning, afternoon, good evening. So today is March the 27th. As every last Wednesday of the month, this is our monthly meeting community call. My name is Keenan. I'll be moderating, and our note taker will be Waveform. So thank you, Waveform. So just a couple of quick things. This meeting is recorded. It will be posted later on today in the governance channel, so you can listen to it again. So if you missed something, don't worry about it. You can always re-listen to it later. And if you have any agenda items, questions, or anything like that, just feel free to ping myself or Waveform, and we'll have a question area at the end of the call as well. So a first thing I want to mention, and I do this every community call, is just a heads up about scams. I want to reiterate this over and over as much as I can. No one from the Helium team will DM you. We will not be adding you as a friend. Generally, anytime someone adds you on, as a friend on the Discord, it's someone trying to scam you. So please, please, please be very wary of anyone sending you a message, sending you a system to open a ticket. There is no ticket system. Don't click any links. Don't enter your 12 or 24 words onto any websites that you're unsure of. Please, please, please come to the Discord, speak in public responses. You know, you can always ask myself or one of the moderators, Waveform, if you have any questions about something, if it's legit or not. Always do that in a public forum. Okay, so just a heads up there. So moving forward, first up, we're going to have a governance update from Waveform. So Waveform, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, we flipped things around this week to account for people turning up on the call later. So I'm first this week. Just reiterating what I mentioned last month, I've been creating a list of HIPs and important dates that can be referenced by anybody writing HIPs in the future, and to know where the future of and the past of all of the history of the networks, where they've come from and where they're going. There's also an outline for each of the networks of all the HIPs and important dates. And the next step will be to create that in docs format so that it's easily accessible rather than people just looking in the GitHub and going everywhere for updates. So there'll be a one-page, effectively, list of everything that's affected mobile and everything that's affected IoT. And then the next step, we'll move to really padding that out with the content from those HIPs as a one big document for each of the networks. That's the next step. First step towards that will be documenting next month. Probably need some community help on that from some people, some experts. I'll need a lot of reviewers to make sure that people have got everything right. I'll be writing a lot of that. So we'll need contributors and reviewers, so that needs a lot of help, and that will be a one-page information for the network for everybody to reference. In the past, we talked about the governance committee and where that future's going. We're taking a lot of steps at the moment to create the environment for a future committee to exist. HIP 110 proxy voting, for example, is one of those steps that will be great for that. We're having contracts with the makers, so they will be closer representing themselves within the network. HIP 115, which is for mobile maker approval. Again, that will be allow closer representation of the mobile makers within the ecosystem. The IoT working group and the mobile working group have both created a new set of charters in the last few months, and they seem to be standardizing in the way that they're going to operate, which is great for them. We've had a lot of HIP PRs lately. PR is the step that a HIP has before it actually gets a HIP number, and several of those have been missing important steps or important content before they get to the thing where we will allow them to be a HIP number. They need the minimum requirements. So I'll be working on the HIP template with a lot of content in there to enable people to write better HIPs, along with a separate list of stakeholders, so people can easily identify the stakeholders when they're writing HIPs. At the moment, for example, a common stakeholder is everybody on the network. Um, that's one of those odd ones that could be put in everyone. So it's about granular identification of who benefits, who doesn't benefit. For example, in the HIP, with each of those stakeholders, and all that will be created. And then next month, I'll be running a governance call where anybody can join, and it will be to present this and to cover a kind of workshop for HIP creators, anybody wanting to write HIPs. I've seen a lot of people who know how to write HIPs write a lot of them, and then odd people writing one-offs who need more assistance. So we'll be starting with a call where people can listen to that call, and then some help documentation on that, so that anybody can start to write a HIP and they've got the background and the assistance and the documentation. And that's my future will be for governance in the next couple of months.
Perfect. Do we have a rough date for that call?
I don't know a rough date yet.
Okay, no problem. We'll check back in. And just a couple of those things that you were mentioning earlier, there are some links in the agenda. So just take a look in the agenda. Okay. Next up, we're going to do an engineering update. A couple of things about the wallet, Helium vote, realms, all that kind of stuff. So Noah, can you come up and give us an update, please?
Yep. How's it going? So yeah, the big thing coming down the pipe right now is we did a complete redesign on the modular governance / Helium vote site. So that'll end up getting merged soon, and it's way easier on the eyes, and the UX has gotten a lot better. So it sort of walks you through all the whole process of creating positions, and generally helps understand what's going on. This is kind of in parallel to us adding governance to the app. We're making it more of a first class citizen. And with this, we've completely gotten off of Realms. So Realms was good because it was here when we did the migration, and we needed something fast because we didn't really have time to build our own solution here. But now that we did have the time, this is much better. And kind of along those lines, you see some HIPs coming through that are in discussion. The main one is this discussion around proxy voting, which I think is really interesting and kind of allows us to create a liquid governance where we get a higher voter turnout. Helium actually amongst DAOs has like a super high vote turnout, but when you compare it to like say the US elections where 40% of people are participating, it's pretty low, or at least I would like it to be a lot higher. So what proxy voting is basically allowing people to let somebody else vote for them for some temporary period of time. So this can be useful. I know a lot of us are part of many decentralized protocols. We're not just messing around with Helium. So if you're busy and you don't have time to be researching every HIP, you can find somebody who does, and proxy your vote to them. So check out that HIP. It's an interesting one, and we've been kind of figuring out what the architecture for that would look like. Outside of governance, We've been adding a bunch of stuff to the wallet app. So the first thing you'll notice is we've kind of improved the claiming experience. Namely, it used to be if you had a ton of hotspots, so let's say you had like, 600 hotspots, you had to change the filters to show all hotspots before you could claim all. Now it's smart enough to figure out that you have more hotspots than are shown, and kind of iterate through them and claim them all. It's also got a fun little animation now. That's not the only thing that we're doing for the hotspots upgrade. We've actually got a map view, which I think Helium used to have, but now soon there will be like a map view where you can see all of your hotspots on a map and kind of cycle through them, which is much more useful than a list of random names. Let's see. So those are the big app updates. The other thing we're kind of looking into and kind of scoping out right now is in the idea of further decentralization, but also just improving issues we've had with makers. We're looking at putting the entire onboarding server on chain. And this would include the part where makers create the idea of a hotspot that exists but is not onboarded yet. So this would also increase transparency because you could see pretty easily how many hotspots each maker has. This will also come with some UX benefits for makers. We're going to hopefully allow makers to have a USDC escrow. And then that will dynamically convert using Jupyter to mobile or data credits or both, depending on what's needed to onboard the hotspot. And that's all I have.
Cool. Thanks, Noah. All right. So up next, we're going to be talking about the Solana scribes. Joey, can you give us an update on that?
Yeah. So I guess as a little bit of a recap, over the month of February, we participated in a Solana-wide hackathon, and our track that we sponsored was specifically focused on improving and adding content to the Helium docs. So as folks may remember, we went through a massive migration last year, which left a lot of the docs out of date. Not to mention governance moves at the speed of light in blockchain. So a lot of things are changing all of the time. So there's a lot of things to sort of keep up to date and fresh on the doc side. So the hackathon I'd call a huge success. We had a bunch of contributions, more than I have been able to review. So I'm still working through some of those, but we have been able to tabulate all of the awards to folks, and we're working on sending those out. I do just want to call out a couple of really cool features that have been added to docs. There's some new widgets in the documentation for running an LNS. So I'm really excited. Like, folks can go and plug in their OUI and look up the balances for that OUI, understand the escrow account. So if you're an LNS operator, that is definitely interesting to you and makes some of that process a lot easier. And then some sort of scattered throughout the docs, there's a bunch more charts. So there's a bunch of Oracle analysis that has been distilled down into easy to understand views. And those have been added to pages to sort of help support the content in everything from token docs to network usage and things like that. So I encourage folks to jump into docs and poke around. Docs continue to be open source, so anyone can jump in and contribute. There's still more work to do, don't get me wrong. And especially as new governance sort of changes attributes of either the IoT or mobile networks or network-wide changes, there will be more to do on that front. So excited to keep pushing on that. But it was great to get the community more directly involved in that process as well. So yeah, that was Scribes. And for anyone who's waiting on awards, bear bear with us. We're working through some last details, and we should be able to get those out in the next week and a half or so.
Cool. Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, got events and comms report with British guy. Love it.
Hi, hi there, everyone. So yeah, I'd just like to give you a quick rundown on where you'll be able to find the foundation at IRL events in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Don't worry, I'm going to throw a lot of names and dates at you now, but I'll post it into the chat as well after, so you can check out where we are. But if everyone's all around the world, so keep your eyes out. If you're going to be at Web3 Festival at the 6th to the 9th of April in Hong Kong, the foundation will be there giving a keynote and panel discussion on the 7th of April. We'll be then also over in Embedded World, 9th to 11th of April at Nuremberg, Germany, with one of our Helium members, Rack, and that'll be in Hall 3, stand 600. Staying in Germany, we'll be at Hanover Messe also at the 22nd to 26th of April with Uplink and Heliotics, Hall 14, stand H06. And then coming back over stateside for Smart Cities USA, the 22nd to 23rd of May. And that'll be alongside Seed at booth 505. Keep in mind, people, if you want to talk events, you can feel free to reach out to us at hello@helium.foundation, and we can discuss events together and working together on our newly launched membership program. I'll pop these in the chat here, so you've all got a copy of those. And that is our update on events for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, you posted all the links. Much better than I could have. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Moving forward, do we have, I don't believe Scott is here, is he? I don't think he could make it at this time. Just one moment here. Okay. We're going to do a makers update. So I'm going to read a statement. Just one moment here. Let me just pull that up. Okay, so maker update from the foundation. So I'm just going to read through this, so just bear with me here. So regarding the IoT network. For those who missed previous discussions, regulating the maker ecosystem historically fell to the Manufacturing Compliance Committee. Makers were held accountable to a public ethics agreement, which in our opinion was insufficient and ineffective. As MCC engagement dropped over time, the foundation took on responsibility of maker compliance. Bearing in mind that makers are ultimately responsible for their obligations to customers, foundation is stepping in to improve the ecosystem guardrails. At the end of last year, the foundation took a census of IoT makers to generally gauge responsiveness. The result was removing 6 makers from the approved list on helium.com. We've also been working with makers to keep onboarding credits topped up to the best of our ability. It's been our opinion that a traditional commercial contract is the best way to determine the most long-term aligned IoT makers and add new measures of accountability. This month, all makers who were responsive to the December census have received this new contract with specific terms and representations. So high level, this obligates, a maker to, number 1, keep firmware updated. Number 2, maintain sufficient onboarding credits. Number 3, be responsive to the foundation and customer inquiries. Number 4, refrain from any gaming of protocol rewards. We've set a deadline of April 30th for the IoT makers to co-sign this legally binding agreement. Failure to do so results in removal from helium.com and pulling API access to the onboarding server. So no longer able to onboard hotspots. Maker keys won't be immediately revoked to allow customers to self-onboard. Generally, we're confident that this is the right step for the IoT network. and ensuring long-term aligned providers on the supply side. If anyone has any questions or wants to get involved on any ongoing Maker ecosystem strategy, feel free to ping Scott. He welcomes it. Okay, and on to the mobile network. As far as the mobile network is concerned, there is a framework identified in HIP 53. Nova is the only approved mobile hotspot maker under HIP 53 guidelines. We understand there's ambiguity with other makers who are given access by the former MCC to onboard 5G hotspots. We're happy to see HIP 115 being discussed today and are in favor of proposals that supplement HIP 53, reduce ambiguity, and articulate appropriate next steps for makers that were approved by the inactive MCC. At the same time, we're also excited by HIP 117 from Rack/Minted as the next mobile vendor. They have followed the same process as Nova Labs, so that being some form of KYB, know your business, security pen test by a reputable third party, staking 50 million mobile, community vote for approval. Nova was approved by MCC. Minted vote will go to VE mobile holders. And arguably, this is fairly in line with HIP 115. We feel we're at a good inflection point for both networks. We're going to continue to evolve this process until we've struck the right balance of accountability and feasibility. Again, if anyone wants to get more involved in this matter, ping Scott or any Foundation team member who can help you get connected. Okay, so that is the statement there. All right, so feel free to post any questions as well. We're going to move on, though, to the working groups. So let's see here. Do we have an update from the IoT working group? I don't know if we have a member who's going to chime in here. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so we're going to move to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They're going through their. They're going through their new membership vote. That's the main news.
Yeah, that's going to be concluding relatively soon, I believe.
Yes, that vote will end on the Tuesday the 2nd. It's a vote for up to 10 of 13 nominations at the moment. And that's on heliumvote.com, same as all the others.
Perfect. Nosmaster, I see your message, so all good. Thank you. Okay, do we have 0 tweets in the audience? We're gonna, oh, there you are, perfect. We're gonna get an update about the mobile working group, please.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, so mobile working group update. First of all, I wanted to thank all of the members for their continued participation. I'm doing the update, but it's actually a good group of very active members that are predominantly doing all the work. And there's been a lot of work that we've been spending cycles on. So very happy to see how the working group has evolved from a somewhat informal club discussing how the mobile sub-DAO should work to now a very well-structured group of people that have all been elected by the community and have been putting on a ton of effort to make the mobile sub-DAO better. The work that we've been concentrating on largely falls into 2 sort of broad buckets. The first bucket is how to ensure that the POC is structured such that the location and types of coverage that is being deployed for mobile sub-DAO is the kind that drives maximum amount of data to the network. And there is a whole bunch of HIPs that fall into that bucket. 103, Oracle hex boosting, which has been recently approved and is being implemented in stages. 109, which has recently been revived and focuses on improvements to how hex boosting is done. 113, which is continuation of this debate of CBRS versus Wi-Fi, and there's a number of others. The second bucket is really about preventing location gaming. As we concentrate coverage towards smaller number of locations that are focused and most likely to drive data, that naturally increases the incentives for people to lie about the location of where the coverage is deployed. And as such, we need to have more robust means for enforcing those who are trying to game. So there's a whole bunch of HIPs that we'll talk about that fall into that category. Some examples are 107, and another one, verification mapping. So there's probably to the tune of 6-7 HIPs that are in different stages, from being implemented to being discussed to being voted on. And I think that there is a separate time allotted on the agenda for the respective HIP offers to talk about their HIPs, which is coming next. I'm not going to go dive into those in detail, but there's a couple that I think I did not see on the agenda, and they're kind of in a sort of limbo state, either too early or somewhere in the middle. That is worth mentioning, that I wanted to bring up on your radar. So first, very important one that's coming up and likely will soon have a channel for discussions and will go to voting is the HIP around verification mapping. We have been talking about verification mapping for a long time, but now we finally have a HIP that lays a fairly solid kind of a ground for doing verification mapping with any phone that belongs to a subscriber of an approved service provider on the network. And again, I won't go into the nitty-gritty details. Would encourage people to read it on GitHub, those that are interested. But the general idea behind that HIP is that it proposes a unique approach to using the virtually ungameable location data that service providers are able to pull from their actual macro towers, and use that location data to sort of cross-validate the CBRS radios and the Wi-Fi access points that have been deployed. And it proposes an algorithm for how that can be done, such that location becomes extremely hard to game. I think that everybody's pretty excited about it. The other HIP that has been kind of on and off, that I don't think is currently listed on the agenda, but is worth mentioning, is the HIP 109. So HIP 109 is something that's out there. There's a channel for it. And at some point in time, there was a decision to sort of close the channel and stop discussing it. But for a recent conversation with the mobile working group members, it's been decided that we'll revive it, because before it was basically, it's kind of become irrelevant because it was sort of subsumed by some other HIP drafts, but those HIP drafts never saw the light of day. So HIP 109 has now been revived, and we're hoping to get it to voting at some point in time. Just to remind everybody, HIP 109 introduces some changes to how service provider hex boosting can be done. More specifically, it allows service providers to be more specific about what type of radio they want in a boosted location, and provides a fee structure for adding that specificity to the boost. So I'll pause here with the generic update, and I think we can go into the HIP by HIP updates that can be done by the various members that wrote the HIP.
Sure, that works. Thank you, Boris. So speaking of current HIPs, and just I'll pause here for a second as well. I apologize. I'm by a really, really busy street that's got a lot of sirens and things. So if that's leaking through, I apologize. I'll try to keep myself on mute as much as possible. But moving forward to HIPs currently voting, we're going to discuss mobile HIP 107. So Heated Lime, if you could please come on up.
Thanks, Keenan. So HIP 107 is preventing gaming within the mobile network. The crux of the HIP is to allow service providers, which Nova is currently the only service provider on the mobile network, to ban, I guess I should say temporarily ban hotspots and CBRS radios if they are suspected of gaming. There's a specific list of gameable and bannable offenses within the HIP. Most commonly, it's location mismatch, basically saying you're somewhere but you're actually somewhere else. There's some other bannable offenses as well in there. There's a stipulation that requires and mandates that the ban cannot exceed 10 epochs, which is 10 days. However, if after 10 days the bannable activity is still occurring, they can ban for another 10 consecutive days and keep doing that indefinitely until the gameable events stop. So there's been some discussion in the 107 channel, so I would recommend everybody going and review that discussion on the pros and cons of the HIPs before deciding to go put out a vote. But it's currently up for vote right now, and I believe there's 2 or 3 more days left of voting. That's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you. You can stay up here as well. I know I'm going to be bringing you back up again shortly. We're moving on to HIPs expected next for voting. So we've got Mobile HIP 113, reward CBRS as experimental. Rarman, if you can come on up and talk about that, please. Oh, I'll pull you up. Sorry, 1 second here.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. So yes, HIP 113. So this HIP is called Reward CBRS as Experimental. So as many of you know, CBRS was basically the birth of the Helium mobile or the Helium 5G network, right? The mobile subnetwork, whatever we want to call it. That's how it all started. We started by deploying CBRS radios. And the hope was that we could get something working where we could get a seamless integration of CBRS radios with a macro network like T-Mobile, for example. It hasn't quite gone as well as everyone hoped, as quickly as everyone hoped. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but as of now, nobody can use CBRS radios because there is no SIM available for use with a macro network. Now, Helium Mobile will be releasing SIMs to use as secondary SIMs for iOS to start and eventually Android, but those will be beta. There will be a lot of limitations and stipulations around how that will work. And so probably very few people will end up actually using them, using the SIMs to access the CBRS radios on the mobile network. So what that ends up meaning is that the CBRS radios aren't really serving many customers. Right now, they're not serving any customers. And going forward, it's probably a long time horizon to figure out various technical integration issues that have been discovered and other issues. That being said, there is a lot of hope for CBRS in the long term, but right now it's not quite providing the utility to the network that it could be providing theoretically. Wi-Fi, on the other hand, is providing amazing utility to the network. It is responsible for 100% of the data transfer. It's much easier to deploy. And there's a whole list of advantages that it has over CBRS and a lot of problems that it solves. The most important one being it works seamlessly with the macro networks and with other offload partners. And it's compatible with every handset. And you can imagine other devices too, like tablets, watches, and computers. In the future, can all use this network. It's available globally, not just in the USA. And these are just some of the comparison items that I presented in the comparison chart in HIP 113. So the idea is that CBRS remains important as an experimental research and development effort for the network, but is providing very low utility. So to cut to the chase, HIP 113 proposes that CBRS rewards via modeled coverage points be reduced by 75% indefinitely going forward. As far as how this would actually affect CBRS radio's earnings, at the beginning, it would be around 45% a cut in mobile token rewards based on recent data, and it would converge to 75% over time as more Wi-Fi hotspots come on the network and take up a greater share of the modeled coverage points calculation on the network. So if passed, this would be implemented 30 days after it was passed, and there is a partial reversal option in the HIP, where basically if a significant breakthrough is made with the main technical issues, handoffs and requiring a second SIM card for CBRS, there will be a vote that will be put to the community. And if that vote passes, the reduction will be brought back part of the way. So HIP 113 proposed a 75% reduction, and the partial reversal would bring it back to a 50% reduction, because even if these two problems are solved, CBRS still has many other roadblocks and disadvantages compared to Wi-Fi. So that's the HIP. I hope I didn't forget anything. And yeah, that's all.
Awesome. Thanks for the update. So the HIP 113 channel has been linked in the chat, so feel free to jump in there if you want to go discuss the HIP. And there's a lot of great info that's been pinned in that channel as well. So if you just go to the top of the channel, click a little pin, there's a ton of information there. Okay, moving on, we're going to talk about HIP 110, all tokens proxy voting, and that is going to be by Hashcode.
Hey everyone. Before I jump into HIP 110, I wanted to maybe add a little more on 113. Not exactly related to the HIP, so I'm sort of sneaking this in. I think it's one thing that I'm pretty impressed by, proud of this community for creating the, arguably the largest CBRS installation there is in the US. And I think it's worth us doing more to enable usage of it. One of the things that I worked on a year ago now was the eSIM program from the foundation. It was a really, really light beta where you could just issue an eSIM to your phone, pay for exactly the amount of data that you wanted to pay for, and then use CBRS radios as a secondary SIM on your phone. So I want to dust that off, and so I think that one of the things that we can do, regardless of this HIP passing or this HIP should probably go to a vote, but I think it's important for us to actually start using this network that people have built, in addition to the Wi-Fi network. So I'm going to see about prioritizing that work. It's been tough. Obviously, our engineering team at the foundation is pretty small, and this was like a side project for me, so you can imagine. So yeah, I want to see if that helps, and let's actually try to use the CBRS network that we have, and this might be a way for companies to build on top of it. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to talk about really quickly, and more details to come there on how we actually make that work. On HIP 110, which is proxy voting, this is a proposal from the foundation. Specifically, this is something that I think is important. The mobile sub-DAO and the IoT sub-DAO were created, really in, the mobile started before the Solana migration, but the Solana migration really sort of kicked this off properly. We have a lot of progress that's being made on the mobile network, some interesting progress being made on the IoT network as well. And I think, the volume of things that are happening, the volume of change is high, and it's hard to keep up with this stuff sometimes. And Noah sort of alluded to that earlier. One of the things that, could help, and we believe will help with participation, is to allow folks that are less active in our community to be able to delegate their voting authority. And there's a lot of rules around this that are set up in the SIP. I encourage you to read the details. But we think this will help with participation and activity in governance on the network. So we'd like to bring this to a vote and see what the community thinks. We've actually written most of the smart contract work around proxy voting already, so it would be implemented fairly quickly after if this was passed.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate the update. I just put a link to HIP 110 proxy voting in the chat. Feel free to go read about it there. We're going to move on to new HIPs. So first one up is a mobile HIP, HIP 111, Mobile Data Utility Benchmark. We're going to get an update from Fizzy. If you want to come on up. Take it away.
There isn't much update on the text itself, because I think we're waiting on Elon to make the actual changes to the text. But the idea has kind of shifted from being a static 10x multiplier to a stepping 10x multiplier that will increase over many months. So it won't be a change all at once, but it will be a change in increments as the months go on. And basically, the thought is that once this, if and when this gets passed, the first month will be a 2x multiplier, while and basically, if you pass data within the and meet the criteria, you'll get a 2x boost on your modeled coverage, while other people that haven't passed data don't get that multiplier. And hopefully this will enact some change over the coming months as we get closer to that 10x. People seeing that some people's rewards are going up because they're passing data, while their hotspot is not passing data, and their rewards are dramatically going down because other people are passing data. So it'll kind of incentivize people to kind of learn that they need to pass data in order to continue to get rewards. So we should see a shift in data being passed, whether it's organic or self-serving. It doesn't matter in this case. Just the hotspot is and can pass data to receive POC boost. And the thinking is at the end of this timeline, everyone will hopefully have a 10x boost. And then immediately after that 10x boost, following the next month, it'll be kind of a 1 or 0 situation where you're either passing data to get POC, or if you don't pass data, you get 0 POC. So that's really just the only update I have. The text just has not been updated to reflect.
Got it. Okay. I assume people can follow along in the HIP channel for any proposed changes anyways.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we've got, let's see here. IoT HIP 112, scaling IoT hotspot assert fees, Heated Lime. Once again, if you want to come up.
Yep, thanks. So HIP 112 is titled Scaling IoT Assertion Fees. The premise behind the HIP is to allow one free location assert per year, which will be a 365-day rolling epoch. And if you decide to assert your location more frequently, instead of being charged $10 in DC, you'll be charged $10 worth of IoT token at the IoT Oracle price. But the big change here is allowing one free location assert a year. I think this will really encourage people to assert their location in the correct spot. I know a lot of the sentiment around IoT has been, it's not worth it to pay $10 to update my location. So I think this will allow encourage deployers to, continue to deploy and have a reduced fee or no fee, basically, when they go to move their hotspot.
Cool. Thank you very much, Heated Lime. Once again, I put that link down in the chat to read about it. Okay. Next up, Mobile HIP 114. Incentive escrow fund for subscriber referrals. 0 tweets. If you want to talk on that one, please.
Yep. So this HIP is designed to create an incentive for service providers to grow the number of subscribers on the network quickly through using various referral programs. The backstory is as follows. Right now, service providers on the network get up to 10% of rewards in proportion to the data that they send to the network. So the data you send, and you up to 10% get back in proportion. However, because Helium Mobile is the only officially voted service provider on the network currently, much of that 10% still remains unused. The original idea behind this 10% was that service providers will get it back and they'll be able to use mobile to basically create various referral programs such that a service provider distributes mobile directly to the potential subscribers. However, what we've learned is because of varying degree of regulatory complexity in various geographies around crypto, highly regulated entities like service providers oftentimes are unable to bear the risk of distributing the tokens to subscribers directly. So this HIP proposes a mechanism that would allow us to use effectively the whatever is unused in this 10% bucket to still incentivize subscriber referrals. And the way it works is service providers would have the ability to delegate some portion of their rewards towards referral programs. So if Helium Mobile is earning, let's say, $1,000 a day in service provider rewards in the form of mobile tokens, we have the ability to say, okay, 50% of that, 500 a day, will go towards what's referred to as the this escrow fund, and then these referred amount, this deferred amount, will be matched by the unemitted tokens. So effectively, like $1,000 a day will be available for the referral programs, and those referral programs basically will allow people on the network to refer subscribers and earn mobile for it. I would suggest everybody to read for the HIP, and just to kind of the TLDR is that it's a way for us to grow the subscribers on the network faster, which respectively drives more data to the network.
Great, thank you for the update on 115. Oh, sorry, 114. Next up, we've got Mobile HIP 115. Redefining the mobile maker approval process. Heated Lime, once more, please.
Hey, yep. So HIP 115, it was kind of previously discussed. It's relating to makers and improving the process to basically allow new makers to be approved to sell equipment for the mobile sub-DAO. Basically, it first mandates that the requirements from HIP 53 are adhered to, which is the 50 million mobile stake and approval by the sub-DAO. It also lays out requirements to have minimum balances in their maker wallet, and it also moves their maker wallet from a self-controlled or self-custody maker wallet to an escrow wallet where they won't have access to remove funds. And then also it implements potential slashing of their 50 million mobile stake if their escrow fund wallet falls below a specific threshold. I believe in the HIP it requires that the balance must have enough for at least 100 onboards at all time. If it does not have enough funds for 100 onboards, slashing will occur of their stake. So there's quite a big penalty for them to not adhere to having enough funds. This will prevent instances of hardware manufacturers not keeping enough funds to onboard equipment. And there's some other provisions in there that will provide additional consumer protections to make sure that manufacturers are doing the right thing.
Awesome, thank you again. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we've got IoT HIP 116, and actually this one's called OUI Additional Address Space Reshuffle. and Waveform's going to just do a quick update for us.
Yeah, Bones and Phil, who are the authors, can't make this call due to it's 3. I think it's 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning for them. But this is a hip for the IoT network. It is for people who are wanting to create their own LoRaWAN network servers to create their own services of sensors. Currently, I think it costs like $900 to set up the very base amount of IDs for sensors, and it's limited to the amount of IDs that are provided for that funds. This HIP says to make it more economical to create a greater amount of addresses available for those funds. So increasing the address space from 8 to 128. And that's where it is at the moment. I'm sure there'll be some people will be very interested in this and have a lot more comments about how this can be changed, because it's been subject to quite a lot of conversation for the last couple of years, this minimum amount. But Bones and Phil will be in the channel at their times whenever you want to chat to them.
Great, thank you for the update. Yeah, that time zone makes it a little bit difficult, I suppose. Okay, next up we've got Mobile HIP 117 add Minted as a hotspot vendor to the Helium mobile subnetwork. And talking on that, we're going to have Jose, who's already up here. Take it away, Jose.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, excited to kind of introduce our HIP 117 to bring Rack and Minted to the mobile network by becoming a hotspot vendor. As many here, I'm sure, know that Rack has been involved with Helium since almost the start, and we are now very looking to continue with this collaboration on the mobile space where we weren't very active. Kind of giving the community more options in the future and also planting the seeds for more decentralization, which is always good. We have been following and working with all the stakeholders to make sure that we meet the HIP 53 requirements, as well as we plan to meet the requirements on the upcoming HIP 115 as well. That was just presented by the Lime. And that basically means that we will stake 50 million mobile and also maintain all the onboarding minimums. We have a discussion open now on our dedicated 117 Discord channel, and yeah, look forward to your feedback and support. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose. And yeah, that channel is posted in the chat there as HIP 117. Okay, moving on, we're going to HIPs implemented. So we've got mobile HIP 103, phase 2 mobile Oracle hex boosting, and that is once again Boris from Zero Tweets.
I think that maybe it would be better to have Mark give the update on it, since I see him in the audience. Perhaps, Mark, you want to hop on and give an update on 103? They're available.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey. So 103, it looks like the urbanization data has been live for about a month now. Seems to be doing okay. We actually have the footfall data going live this week. In fact, I think it may happen today or tomorrow, which will be nice. And if I'm correct, the planner will update with at least visualization of both of those layers in the on planner.helium.com. So it may not, and then we'll iterate on that to like add more like useful information around like scoring impacts. I wanted to at least get something out there so people can see on a map whether they're in one of these layers or not. We'll get that. That should go live shortly. The land type data is next, and good progress is being made there as already as well. So I think we're just keep on cranking.
Perfect. Anything to add to that, Boris, or is that sufficient?
think that's it. Thank
Cool.
you, Mark.
All right. And all right, I don't think we have anything else governance-wise. Waveform, is there anything else to add there? Double checking.
There were a couple of things that probably people need to know. That the new Helium vote site will go live at the end of the IoT working group vote. I think that's where we're heading for the timescales of that. And another question that has been asked was about the penetration testing information for the minted hotspot. And Jose has said that will be provided before the HIP goes to vote.
Perfect. Okay. Great. All right. Well, that's bringing us to close to the end of the call here. So if there's any other questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. In the meantime, that's just a good reminder for me as well. The IoT working group vote is currently up. Please, please, please go and vote for anyone there. You get, I believe it's 10 selections. You can do that through the Helium wallet app. And yeah, make sure you go and vote. Another quick reminder too is the time change. Daylight savings time is such a confusing thing, but North America changed a couple of weeks ago. I believe Europe is changing the 31st, I believe. Waveform, again, you could probably comment on that, but
yeah, Europe will change this weekend.
This weekend. Okay, perfect. So that's probably going to throw off some timing of meetings, working groups, things like that in the Discord. So we're trying to keep up with those changes and make sure it's still accurate. But if you see something incorrect, just ping me. And yeah, we can deal with that on our side here.
Yeah, next month, the time of this call won't change for the Americas, but it will be an hour later for Europe.
Got it. Okay. So that will throw some things off. I don't know why Europe and North America aren't synced up on this, but causing some trouble, that's for sure. All right, and it looks like we're going to have one little last addition here from Gateholder.
Sure, thanks, guys. I just want to quickly bring up Worthington Networks, so we're trying to become the second service provider. I just want to kind of bring attention to the pull request 955 and talk about adding a new fixed wireless service provider to the Helium network. We're pretty early into this, but we felt like it was necessary to start providing true utility to the CBRS network, and I think that we're planning on launching a beta in the approximately the next 2 weeks, which we're going to have a sign up ready for people, hopefully sometime next week. And like I said, we're really excited where this journey takes us. I really appreciate you guys' time.
Cool. Do you have a link to the PR you can post in chat?
I do. Just
you know what? Waveform beat us to it. Excellent. Well, thank you for coming up here. And
sure.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So you can take a look at the chat and read the PR. So that is bringing us to the end of the call. I'm not seeing any other questions or anything in the chat. So we're going to close it off here in a second. Just a reminder again about the time change for Europe on the 31st. The next call will be, I believe, let me just pull it up here, Wednesday, April 24th, same time. That would be noon Eastern for myself, at least. And again, I'll make sure that the times are accurate for everyone. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. And yeah, if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, feel free to ping myself, Waveform, or any of the moderators in the Discord, and we will see you next time. Thanks everyone for joining. And once again, we'll have a recording for you that you can re-listen to this call if you missed anything. All right, have a lovely week, everyone. We'll see you next time.